of town business. And we appreciate our town manager as we operate under the council manager form of government, Natasha Tucker, who handles daily operations and department administration, while the town council provides direction and authorizes policy in accordance with the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia and our town charter. While each town council member has the ultimate responsibility to contribute and vote distinctly, the council does work as a body, duly elected to serve responsibly and ethically the citizens of Colonial Beach. Participation of each member contributes to effective leadership. Collaboration is key to productivity in local government. Let's engage in constructive discussion, remain open to different perspectives, and work together for effective resolutions. Finally, I remind us all that the meetings of the Town Council are formal proceedings and are recorded. And with that, we will call this meeting of the Town of Colonial Beach to order at 6 p.m. on April 16th. Please join me in standing for a moment of silence, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, moving forward with roll call, all members are present. I don't have any additions to the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
So moved.
Is there a second to that? Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Next up is the consent agenda, which has the meeting minutes from October 18th on it. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the meeting minutes?
Yeah, just a quick question. I see it's October of 2023. Are we caught up with 2023 and 24?
All of fiscal '24 is done. There's a couple left in 2023 and a couple left in 2022. As far as the year we're in now, all caught up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, next up is our council member announcements, and we'll start on Mr. Wood's side this time.
Okay, good evening, everyone. The Colonial Beach Police Department wants to congratulate Police Officer Ryan Tate, who has been named as the Colonial Beach Police Officer of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce. Congratulations, Officer Tate. There will be a neighborhood watch meeting in the community room at the police department on Thursday, April 24th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Everyone is welcome and encouraged to attend. In regard to the Planning Commission, they approved the director's updates to the annual work plan. A copy of the plan is available on the Planning Commission's webpage. They reviewed the notes from the floor area ratio work session, and staff suggested zoning text amendment to add a definition of FAR to Article 20 of the zoning ordinance. The proposed ordinance language would not change the 0.4 maximum floor area ratio, but does define the term FAR as the enclosed portion of a dwelling, excluding a maximum of a 24 by 24 foot private garage. The commission asked staff to also include in the proposed amendment an update to the ordinance definition of a private garage. The commission authorized a public hearing for the FAR zoning ordinance text amendment for the May 8th meeting, and everyone is invited and encouraged to attend. That's it for me.
Okay, Mr. Larson?
Yeah, so for the finance update, quarterly water, sewer, garbage bills are due. Penalty.
Look close.
Sure. How about now? Good? Everybody? So quarterly water, sewer, garbage bills are due. Penalty and interest will apply starting on May the 1st. June 2025 real estate bills will be mailed next week on the 23rd. Town of Colonial Beach business licenses are due by May the 1st. Penalty and interest will apply starting the 2nd of May. And Town of Colonial Beach 2025 golf cart decals must be displayed starting the 30th of this month, April 30th. And that's it. I got nothing from the NGOs this month, so I'm good.
Mr. Williams?
Okay, I see that Dr. Otto is on the schedule tonight, so I'll let him give the majority of the updates. I will mention that they passed their budget, so they're done with their budget process. And their meeting was a pretty long meeting last time I attended, and they did a lot of awards. I'm sure Dr. Otto will mention some of the recipients of those awards. But that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Grandstaff?
The Economic Development Committee met on the 8th, and some of the highlights they discussed were they're having the chamber dinner on April the 23rd. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, per Kelly, you can still purchase tickets on the chamber website for that. The other highlight is July 25th to the 27th will be the Potomac River Yacht Club event. And they'll be showcasing many points of the Colonial Beach area and bringing attention to us. It has been noted that marketing has been up for them. So the Economic Development Corporation Committee, in addition with the Chamber, are collaborating to have the visits and statistics that are being tracked to their website to see how much engagement they're getting from each area. So far, they've had 563 engagements with 406 going to the chamber site in order to get information about the town. Also, another highlight was that Benny and Kelly, chairs for EDC, were able to take Jim Taylor, County Administrator, on a tour of Colonial Beach and show him the many different things that the town has to offer. The other thing that they're working on wrapping up is the emphasis on the business breakfast, May Breakfast Appreciation for Businesses, which will be held at the Ice House on May 9th at 8 a.m., and discussions are in the work for another one in September. Those were the highlights, and next meeting will be on May the 13th. That's it for EDC. Thank you.
Ms. Sanford?
So the Park Recreation and Advisory Commission, like I said last meeting, has 2 resignations. So there are 2 open positions. There are applications available at the entrance of Town Center if you guys are interested in applying. The Parks and Rec Advisory Commission is also actively developing programming in the 13 to 17 and 18 to 35 age groups. These efforts are aimed to foster community involvement and expanding recreation opportunities for all these young people. And then some recent events. The Osprey Festival was on April 12th. It was very successful despite the cold and soggy grounds. Parks and Recreation volunteers made over 60 kites for the young attendees. There was also the Osprey Kite Day on April 13th, and they had over 20 kite flyers in attendance. They were all homemade, store-bought, or festival kites. Additional activities coming up is the Coffee Walk, which is held every second Friday at 8 a.m., and meeting at Colonial Buzz. And then the townwide garage and yard sale is scheduled for May 31st from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then upcoming special events is the Colonial Beach Chamber of Commerce Easter egg hunt is happening this Saturday from 10 a.m. on Town Hill. This is an age-diverse event and completely free. The Easter Bunny will be visiting on a fire truck. And then there is the first ever Colonial Beach Pickleball Tournament hosted by Kobe on the Potomac, happens April 26th and the 27th. If you would like more information about that event, you can email Sally Adams.
Mr. Allison?
Good evening, everybody. The Public Works Liaison, just to give you an update, the beach replenishment is ongoing. That'll take probably end of next week to complete that. Mulching of the dog park has been completed, as well as the Town Hill project, the welcome wall at the Town Hill project has been completed as well. Just to give everybody an update on grass cutting seasons here, so please be aware as the Public Works are cutting the grass on town-owned properties, any of the parks and stuff, rocks can be thrown, people could get hurt, so just be aware of that as they're doing their duties and just kind of sit back a little bit till they're completed if possible. We'll also get an update on the sewer plant during the town manager's update, so we'll leave that to Bowden. And as always, we have continued prep for the season as it comes fastly approaching, or is here, as they say. So be ready for the adventures. Thanks.
I can't wait for warmer weather. It's like, it faked us out a few weeks ago, didn't it? I only have a couple announcements. One, I just want to give, again, a kudos to the Osprey Festival. It was downpouring all day Friday, and certainly questionable about what was going to happen with that, and it pulled off really well, and it was really a great event and very family-friendly and well-attended despite the cold, and it was freezing at 9 a.m. at the welcome speech. So I was glad to see everybody out for that, and a shout out to the Easter egg hunts that are happening this weekend. The Chamber one on Town Hill is at 10. I think the Colonial Beach Baptist Church is at 11. Those are all free. And also just a moment of recognition. There was a service Friday for Mr. Rodney Wright, who was a science teacher in town for his entire career. He was my science teacher, and probably many others that are tuning in or from here. And so with his passing, I just wanted to say he's dedicated his life to Colonial Beach. He's from South Carolina, but then came and made this his family and his home in many ways. So I just wanted to recognize him. With that, I have the town manager update next.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, audience members. Just have a few updates tonight. We'll start off with the human resources. New hires for the month of April. Yes. So this position has been vacant since the departure of Kelly Efko, our former Economic Development Director, and we have put on a really robust recruiting effort to hire someone for that role, and I am pleased to say that on April 21st, Ms. Charlotte Cole will join the town as our new Economic Development Director / Downtown Colonial Beach Director. So we are just waiting with anticipation for Charlotte's arrival so that she can assist us with a lot of wonderful things. When Charlotte comes, of course, I will introduce her to council and the town, but just briefly, her background, she has extensive background in working with downtown Main Street organizations, and so she will bring that wealth of experience to the town. We have, before I introduce our new assistant town manager, we have added 3 new police officers to our police department. Their names are Nathaniel Romias, Wade Hill, Brandon Aaron. The 3 officers are currently at the academy right now, and upon their graduation, we will bring them back to council to formally make an introduction. Okay, the long-anticipated arrival of this young man. I cannot say enough great things about Mr. Kyler Brower. Kyler is a dedicated public servant. He brings a passion for effective leadership, transparent communication, and community planning to his new role as the Assistant Town Manager of Colonial Beach. Kyler is eager to serve as my right-hand man and also to help collaborate with the mayor, the council, the staff, and to help tackle the many challenges that we face and deliver exceptional services that will enhance the community. Kyler has a master's degree in public administration from Southern Utah University and a bachelor's degree in communication studies. Kyler has built a career centered around strategic planning, policy, data analysis, and public engagement. He has held key positions at the city, county, and federal levels of government, including serving as assistant to the city administrator in Pleasant Grove City, Utah, senior policy advisor and budget hawk to Utah's Salt Lake County Council and their $1.7 billion budget, as a mayor's policy advisor and constituent liaison for 2 United States senators. And if he wants to go more into detail regarding that role, he should share that. So Kyler comes from a proud lineage of public servants, including his father, who currently serves as a city manager back in Utah. Kyler's commitment to local government is matched by his enthusiasm for life outside of the office. He's an avid sports fan and competitor. He enjoys fitness, playing pickleball and men's softball. He's a true outdoorsman. He lives for hunting, fishing, and anything around the water. With his deep-rooted passion for public service and community success, Kyler is excited to contribute to the continued growth and prosperity of Colonial Beach. I am pleased to present our new Assistant Town Manager, Kyler Brower.
Welcome, Kyler.
Well, Mayor and Council, Kyler Brower, I'm excited to be here. I don't know what more I could say besides what was already read there. Some people ask me where I'm from, and that's kind of hard for me to answer because I moved around quite a bit. But originally I was born in Florida, moved to Georgia, moved to Utah, moved back to Florida, back to Utah, and now I'm here with y'all. And I'm looking forward to working with the town manager, working with the great staff here to push your priorities forward and to ensure we're meeting the needs of our residents. So unless you have questions for me, I just have one last shout out. Pickleball tournament's in 2 weekends from now. If anybody needs a partner, let me know. 3540 here right now, so thank you.
I don't think, I think you're going to need a better partner than, I don't know, maybe Rick, you good at pickleball?
I'm good at pickleball.
You're going to miss pickleball. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you here.
I'd also like to offer a brief update regarding the North Beach project. While I still don't have really hardcore definitive timelines to share, I would like to share that I've spoken with Jerry Davis, who is the executive director of the Northern Neck Planning District Commission. So Jerry helped draft the grant application for the town. And in my conversations with Jerry, he just said that he expects to receive notification soon, but he does not have a specific date or time. So when that becomes available, I will share that with everyone. Special events, okay. So I just want to just go over our 2025 special events application. There has been a change in the fees. There are several different levels of classifications for events. There are 4 listed here for you, Class A, Class B, Class C, and Class D. The distinction among the different levels is determined by the number of attendees. Class A is the largest type event, whereas Class B has at least 100 and under attendees. So depending on the level of event, there are different fees associated with those events. With Class A being the large event types, I'll center my discussions mainly around the Class A events, but I have there listed the several different fees available. So for Class A events, these are our large event types, which typically bring in 300, 3,500 and up attendees to the town. So you're thinking large scale. Think Potomac River Fest, 4th of July, Bite Fest, events of that nature, of those natures classify as type A events. So there's a daily fee amount of $1,250, a deposit of $425, a bond amount of $2,000, and the due dates 120 days prior to the events. Now, although the due date's 120 days prior to the events, we are open to communication, and we will work with any event organizer if for some reason the time frame, they can't meet the time frame. Just give us a call, either call Sally or call me directly, and we are more than willing to work with event organizers around that time frame. Another change that took place is that previously there was a 50% discount that was provided for all confirmed 501c3 organizations. We've decreased that discount amount to 25%, as the 50% discount, when that went in place, it was never the intention that that would remain in perpetuity. And getting some background on how that came about, that was instituted during COVID. And so since we are beyond the COVID timeframe, we've changed that to 25%. There's also a 25% discount for breakdown days for all other organizations. I want to say that the town does not charge any fees for events that's held in conjunction with federal holidays, Memorial Day events, Juneteenth celebration, Veterans Day ceremony. The town does not charge for any of these events. I know that there was some confusion surrounding that, and just want to clear that up. We do not charge for either three of those federal holiday events. For the event space fees, so historically, when an organization wanted to plan an event on Town Hill, the entirety of Town Hill was rented for an event. Oftentimes, there was just a section of Town Hill that was used, leaving other areas of Town Hill vacant. We ran into situations where event organizers wanted to hold an event for a specific day, but because another organizer had booked that day for Town Hill, we weren't able to hold the event. So in 2025, we decided that we would break down Town Hill into three separate and distinct areas. Town Hill along the Washington Avenue side, Town Hill, the Boardwalk side, and also the Boardwalk Town Hill area, which is closest to the pier. That way, theoretically, we could hold three events on the same day at those distinct places within Town Hill. Organizations could partner together to bring several events at the same day. We actually encourage that. As more folks are coming into town with ideas of different events, we want to welcome and be able to provide the time and the space for them to do so. The Colonial Beach Police Department provides, at no cost, one police officer for all of the events. The Class A's and the Class B's, those are the two largest events. There's no charge for that. However, there is an additional security that would be required in the event that an event carries a liquor license, an event is a parade, an event has live concerts. 80 or more event vendors, or there's unsecured overnight vendor items that would be left at the location. We offer 3 separate ways that you could meet the additional security requirements. One solution is to pay a rate of $50 per hour for the additional officer that would be required, or hire a third-party security company, or use qualified volunteers that are DCJS qualified. That's through the Department of Criminal Justice Services. So there are 3 different options available for event organizers in order to meet the additional security requirement. And this is not a flat fee. This only applies to events, again, that hold a liquor license, parades, live concerts, 80 or plus vendors, or they're leaving unsecured vendor items overnight. There are a la carte fees that we've made available in this year's application. So these fees are only incurred if utilized. There is a water fee. If you less than 50 gallons per day, there's the $25 flat fee. Public service, as I mentioned earlier, $50 an hour additional officer, or the other 2 options that I mentioned. The dumpster, there's a $30 fee, electricity, and so forth. Also, something that a lot of confusion was surrounding this item, and we have modified the language in the application. Admittedly, the way that the language read, the first iteration of the application, it would lead someone to believe that there would be a charge for all traffic cones. That is not the case. Traffic cones are provided for all events free of charge, regardless of the number of cones used. If an event uses 30 cones, 50 cones, 100 cones, there's no fee associated with those traffic cones, provided that a meeting was held with the special events group, and it was determined the amount of cones that would be needed, such as the parade routes or to corral certain areas. The $25 per cone fee only comes into effect if there's a late request for the cones after the planning phase with the Special Events Committee has taken place. So let's say the day of an event, and it's realized that we need additional cones, and a call is made the day of the event, that's when a charge for the additional cones would apply. Otherwise, the cones are free as part of the planning phase for the events. And those are all of the updates for the application that I have. And unless there are any questions, we can move on with Lisa Oakes for our third quarter finance report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. I'm going to present the third quarter financial report. We're going to start with, go ahead to the next slide, Heather. Next. Our general fund, this shows our revenue and expenditures. In the center there, you'll see the third quarter numbers, the revenue we brought in and the expenditures we had spent. The budget is on your left, and on the right is our year-to-date amounts. The next slide shows the breakdown of where the revenue comes from and what departments it's spent from. We'll move over to the sewer fund. Again, your revenues and expenditures for the third quarter. I will say that we are at, 63% of revenue collected on the sewer fund, which we should be at 75. And we have spent 78% of our budget in the sewer fund. Most of this probably is contributed on the expenditure side to the wastewater treatment plant. Next slide shows the breakdown where the money is coming in and what it's being spent, where it's being spent. And go to the next slide. And our water fund. Water fund, we have collected 64% of our revenue and have spent 73% of our budget. Again, we're seeing our revenues not as robust as it should be compared to our expenditures. Water fund breakdown, next slide. See where we collect the money from and how it's being spent. And then the next slide, our ARPA fund update. So this shows the total funds we received, expenditures from fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2025 to date. Remaining funds that are available at this time. We have a note here. We have requested $2.5 million from DEQ for the central drainage area project that was completed. And we are also had requested a reimbursement from VRA for the resilience plan development. And I don't have a slide for this, but it's been mentioned that we start including cash figures. And I would kind of explain a little bit why we really haven't. Cash changes on a daily basis. Cash is usually only reported at a certain period of time. So the numbers I give you today will be for, as of today, close of business for 16/25. These numbers will change tomorrow and so forth. So in total of our town funds, we have $8,166,531. Of that, $4,073,690 are general funds. The ARPA fund is now at $389,927. Our water fund has $2,503,240, and our sewer fund has $1,199,673. And I would be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
Mr. Wood? I saw his hand first.
Do we know when we anticipate the reimbursement on, for DEQ?
I got an email today from DEQ. They are requesting one more additional item that I'm going to have to track down. And hopefully at that point, they will approve it and release the money. So
Do we have a good guesstimate once you track that down?
I don't know. I have never worked with DEQ before.
Okay.
So it's been a process. But like I said, one more item they've asked for now.
Okay, and when those funds are reimbursed for us, will that go back into the ARPA pot? Do you understand what I mean?
That is what we are supposed to do, yes, because it was supposed to be reimbursed in those ARPA funds. And those funds, as we know, those ARPA funds, we can use, as council can use as how they want to. The money has no restrictions.
Okay, thank you.
Are you expecting to do more reimbursements?
Yes.
Like with this DEQ process, and in that, have we had some lessons to learn to make sure all of pay work comes?
We still have money that we have from the DEQ that we are going to be setting for reimbursement. And a lot of it has to do with the I&I project, which is still ongoing. So as we complete that project, and what else is on there? There's a couple of other items. that are on the list for DEQ. So there are more items that we're going to be getting reimbursement from.
Mr. Williams, I'm sorry.
That's right. Part of my question was about what Rick asked as well, but the DEQ funds, wasn't that like 3.8 million total? Well, how much
The
was it?
DEQ,
The-
I believe
yeah.
it's 5.7.
Oh, that's right, 5.7. And so they're going to reimburse us the 2.5.
Yeah, that was what we spent on the central drainage area.
Okay. And when will the remaining amount of money come to council for a decision on spending?
The remaining money of the ARPA
The
fund?
the 5.7.
Oh, that is coming from DEQ, and there are certain items that's earmarked for. DEQ has this I&I project. I don't know what the other two, there's two other projects on there, all related to the infrastructure, the water and sewer infrastructure.
Okay, so they're already earmarked per
Yes,
DEQ
that,
consent?
yeah, DEQ has, there are certain items we need to spend that money on,
Okay.
correct?
Can we get an updated list of that?
Sure,
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a note.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Bert.
Madam Mayor, members of council, good evening. Go to the next slide, please, Heather.
Is your mic on, Chief?
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it not-
Maybe like bring it right to your,
Is that better?
yes, it is
Okay.
actually a lot better.
All right. All right. The first slide here is going to be our missions, the police department's mission statement. On the next slide, we're going to have our Colonial Beach Police Department, our organizational chart. It does indicate that the SRO is vacant. However, Lieutenant Wright is still serving as the SRO until she transitions to a full-time lieutenant position in May after graduation. Next slide, please. Next one. The Colonial Beach Police Department in the first quarter of 2025 answered total calls for service, 2,692 total calls. We completed 131 incident reports, conducted 454 traffic stops, investigated 4 traffic collisions, and made 47 arrests during that quarter. Next slide. This is going to show you the reports that we received, the offenses that were reported. The larger items would be, starting from the left, 13B is simple assaults. The 23F, which is the number 5, or has 5 incidents, are thefts from vehicles. Then all other larcenies or all other thefts, thefts from motor vehicles. The large number, number 7 there is reports that we took for destruction of property. And at the very end on the right are the reports for weapons violations. The next slide, please. This is going to show the number of arrests. In the very first entry there is for simple assaults. The next largest one is going to be for driving while under the influence, DUIs. And then the last one is a 90Z, which is all other offenses. Those are offenses that don't fall into one of the other enumerated categories. Next slide, please. This slide shows the offense trends, or the days of the week when we received our reports of criminal events or crime incidents. The largest entry there is on the far right, which is a Saturday. Sunday is next, and then middle of the week, Wednesday and Friday were the 2 others. And we try to schedule patrol operations around those times to address those spiked or the increased volume. Next slide. This is going to show offense trends, and it shows you the time of the reported incidents. At the very left, 2 o'clock in the morning has 4 incidents, and then the next largest one would be at 10 o'clock, And then at 1 o'clock is where it indicates that we had 6 incidents located at 1. And then the largest one is largest entry is at 10 o'clock in the evening. Next slide, please. This is going to be a listing of the traffic citations that were issued. This is not criminal offenses. This is just traffic citations. Without going into too much detail, analysis of the statistics presented here indicate that the primary offenses are speed-related and equipment violations. But I'm glad to report that the increased traffic enforcement has resulted in a reduction in traffic collisions, which is what we intended to do, slow people down and reduce traffic collisions. Next slide, please. Next one. For the Colonial Beach Volunteer Fire Company, they answered 39 fire calls, attended 7 motor vehicle accidents, responded to 57 emergency management calls, medical calls, 11 public service events, and completed a total of 378 man-hours and averaged 4.86 members per call. In the last slide, this is for the Westmoreland Department of Emergency Services. They responded to a total of 205 medical calls in Colonial Beach. Their average response time was 9 minutes and 33 seconds to each call, and they completed a total of 132 transports. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Yes, sir.
I do have a question. I noticed the EMS calls, January, February, March, there was an uptick in each month. Is that just a statistical anomaly, or is there a reason?
I would have to discuss that with the chief of the Westmoreland Department of Emergency Services. I don't have any specific incidents or reasons for it now, but I can discuss with Chief Bird and get back to you.
Yeah, just as a point of interest. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, just a couple of quick questions. One, do you have any reports on how the EMS is going? I know they came here, the county came here temporarily in the building that they're in now with hopes that they would get, more permanent location.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any updates on that location status?
On the location, no, sir. As far as I know, and it's limited information, is that they were still receiving funds for the potential building on Colonial. But
Okay.
I haven't been updated on what the value of that, or the level of donations they have at this point.
Okay. And just a suggestion for future presentation, if we could get something that shows the statistics over time, to me, that would be helpful, like what crimes are up or down, like a year ago versus this year, or something like that. If, maybe a bar graph or something, theft or
So
speeding or whatever.
crime trends is what?
Yeah,
Okay.
over time versus just a snapshot in time. So, that's all I got. Thank you.
Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And Bowden is with us over online today.
Yes, hello everyone. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right, for those who don't know, I'm absent this evening. I'm attending a conference where I get my continuing education credits for our licensure to be able to operate the wastewater plants. So I want to start with February. We didn't get to do the February report, so I'd like to start on page 2 of February. One thing I want to point out, February was a pretty wet month, and as you see by the top bar graph there, the flow goes all the way up. We had a day of 5 million gallons, 4.5, 3, 3.5. That facility is designed treatment flow for 2 million gallons per day, and some of those rain events were well over 2 million gallons. Overall, the plant handled it well. We do except for the ammonia that we've been dealing with during the cold months with the low BOD and then the anox mixtures and such. So, the anox mixtures were replaced at the end of January, January 29th, and what we have been seeing since that date is the ammonia levels were trending downward. They actually were cut a little about in half for this month, so we're heading in the right direction there. And also with that, the nitrites that we've been dealing with for the last year are starting to come down as well. So the Xanox mixers getting repaired was a huge benefit to the treatment at the facility. So the nitrite, I think in January our levels were at 17 milligrams per liter, and now since those mixers are repaired, that is trending down. We're right about 8.38 milligrams per liter. So that's a significant drop just with fixing those pieces of equipment. Page 4, please. On page 4, it shows our BOD ammonia for February, and then our fecal coliform and intercocci, everything there. The ammonia, you can see if you compare to last month, it's trending down very well. As far as the bacteria and things going to the river, that's all well below permit, so we're pretty pleased with that, even with the high flow days. Overall, we're seeing a big improvement with the repairs and things that have been made. Operational notes that are worth mentioning for February, the PLC, as you all know, we've been having problems with the PLC failing, just random. Lord and Company come in, they were doing some more on-site diagnosing. They've upgraded some software, added some hardware to it to keep the PLC from losing its programming. We have seen a huge improvement with that. Haven't had any failures since that has been done. Chris and his team were able to get what we call the micro screen. The grinder for the micro screen has been repaired and put back in place. The micro screen is what gets out the debris and particle and things that go through the plant that clog up the pumps and clog up the sand filters. So that was a much needed repair. That equipment has been offline for quite some time. We've done some other maintenance tasks, cleaning effluent tanks, things of that nature. We've added some what we call augmentation. We've got some cold weather bugs that we put in to help the microbiome there, and that's working out pretty well for us. Waste pumps failed to some blown fuses. We believe that was also related to some of the storm events, and your public works department got that all resolved pretty quickly. And we have collected the PCB wet weather tests for February, and that really concludes the February report. And Heather, if you would, let's move over to March and start on page 2. And if you take a look at that bar graph, one benefit to looking from one month to the next in the same meeting is you can kind of see the differences in the flows there related to the weather events. March was a pretty dry month compared to February and January as well. One of our highest days of flow there was a little over, 1.5 million gallons per day. And the plant is absolutely capable of treating that without issue. One thing to note, exceedances, the ammonia level was still trending down for March. And since March the 19th, the ammonia is back in compliance. I'm definitely excited to announce that. The ammonia has come back into compliance, and the nitrites are still trending down. They have dropped from 17 in January to 8.5 in February, and now that they've come all the way down to 3.0 milligrams per liter, which is back into compliance. So we're happy that we're there. So that gets us back in line with your WQIF requirements. So overall, March was a very good month. Everything is looking good. We're back in compliance with all aspects of your general permit as well as your nutrient permit. The operational notes for March, Lower and Company has come in. They've worked on the SCADA system for the denitrification sand filters. The denitrification filter is part of the nitrite reduction. They got the SCADA system put in. There's still some other components that feed information to the SCADA that helps control the sand filters, that those things are still taking place, and we're looking for that hardware and all to be finished in the next couple of months as those parts come in. And the other note is the Public Works Department, they did finish the fine screen, the micro screen system, got it completely put back in service. That is a huge benefit for the treatment plant, and we're all pretty excited to see that. We had a Kaiser Tech come on site to service the blowers. The blowers provide the air for the denitrification sand filters, and that is how the sand cleans itself, so it's able to continue filtering. We had Atlantic Pump come in. They had to repair one of our return activated sludge pumps. That is one of the pumps that returns the bacteria, back to the head of the plant so it can continue, or goes back to the nitrification tank to continue treating. And that's a very important part of the process. You cannot have those pumps down. If they are down, they have to be repaired immediately. So Chris and his team did a great job there getting that back in place. They got the rest of the fuses replaced for the waste pumps that had failed due to the storm event, and they do have some spares on site. And in February, I spoke about doing the wet weather PCB samples. Well, in March, we were able to collect the dry weather PCB samples. So that is all that is needed for this year when it comes to that. And overall, we're pretty happy with what we had in March. It's nice to see the plant come back into compliance, and that has a lot to do with the collaboration between IAS and the Public Works Department in getting, efficient treatment and getting these failed components back online. So we're definitely heading in the right direction. And that concludes the reports for February and March. And does anyone have any questions?
Yes, John, Lisa Grandstaff, I have a question for you. I know we had talked about the sludge, and I see where you do allude to that pump one was repaired, but sourcing parts have become difficult due to the pump being obsolete. And we know preventive maintenance does help with the quality and the cost of any operation. So with it being noted a pump being obsolete, is there any talks or discussions about getting that pump up to being more in order or more current to function, because we know that sludge, having that being taken out is an important part of that process as well?
Absolutely. That's a good question. And that pump has been repaired, put back in place. Those are the original return pumps since the facility was built. That was even back before the BNR upgrades with the WQIF grant. But the only issue with that is there are some hard components within that pump that are not rebuildable. This will be the last time that pump will be able to be rebuilt. Chris is in communication, and we're already looking at what it's going to take to replace those pumps, and that's something that is going to have to be done, probably in the next 2 years. So, that is part of the plan to get the funding and source out and plan and part of the budget to get those pumps replaced.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, I was just going to ask, do you have any updates on the recent overflow spill that happened? And also, I noticed no notice went out to the public, so I'm assuming that it didn't fit the criteria that we normally have for overflows?
No, and that was really a minor event, and it does, it was reported to DEQ, but it was not an event that would cause any harm to the public or anything. What that really was is the rainwater, where it rained so hard on Friday during the day, Friday afternoon, the entire plant, the whole grounds over there was flooded. So we had a lot of water that was running into that particular lift station, and there is also what we call the reuse pump building there that has a floor drain that runs into that lift station, that building become flooded. So what we had to do is get an excavator and dig some trenches to get that water away from that building. But the quick response from my team, as well as Chris himself, we were able to get that resolved pretty quickly. Your previous events were in the hundreds of thousands of gallons. We were able to get this stopped, and with an estimated of 5,000 gallons. Some of that did obviously stay on site, but with the flooding and the amount of water, it was kind of hard to quantify. But most of that, kind of stayed on the grounds. All of it was clear rainwater, so it didn't have any sludge, any, thing there. Granted, it was mixed in with the wastewater, and there would have been it did not get disinfected, but that was clarified storm water per se because of the event. And where I was talking about the amount of flow that we were seeing in February, where the plant is designed to treat 2 million gallons, we were running the plant that day during that storm that would have equated to around 6 million gallons. So, that was a difficult day because of the rain event, but we were able to get through it. But no, there was no reason for the public to be alarmed by that event whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
John, I have one follow-up question. I had a really great updated tour fairly recently over at the plant. Spent some time over there, and the press machine is functioning better than I've ever seen it, but it still is getting serviced. Do you have a date of when that service repair is still coming?
We did reach out to the vendor, and he informed us that he had had a stroke, and now he is on the mend, and he is telling us that he will be here by the end of this month to make those repairs.
Okay, because that's really key in getting the remaining sludge out. That's just to loop the public back to the beginning of how that conversation was 2 years ago. We were talking about $1.5 million to 2 million, I don't know, 3 million, a lot of millions of dollars to pull the sludge out of the tanks. But instead we are processing it through, which takes longer, but we have to be able to process it through, so.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a tremendous cost savings for the town. And the way that we are processing that through the plant, it's been very effective. And it is challenging at times, but it's really what needs to be done. And secondly, I really appreciate your visit, coming over to check on things and see the progress that's being made and to, give us your input. Thank you.
Okay, there are further questions on this? I know that rain event was crazy on, what was that, just last weekend?
Yeah, that was the most rain and flow that we've seen at the facility since we've been here. So, Chris, he has a plan on how to divert some of the water away from that particular scum pit lift station there. But, we believe we know what we can do there to prevent that from happening again.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay. Anything else, Natasha? Are you?
No, that concludes the town manager updates.
Okay. We'll keep moving forward in presentations. Our county supervisor, Mr. Trivet, is at a board meeting at Regional Jail, so he's not able to be with us tonight. So we'll keep moving forward to Dr. Addo and Colonial Beach Schools.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, and everyone present tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Colonial Beach Public Schools. First, I would like to, as always, give thanks to a huge shout out to our staff because what the teachers and staff, what they do every day is commendable. Their commitment, their dedication. I'm always amazed when I go through the schools to see their passion and their care for our kids. Second, I would also like to thank our school board members for their leadership in improving the schools through policy and regulations. As of last week, we were able to have a board work session where we review and edited and updated a lot of board policies, more so of to be consistent with the Code of Virginia, which was beneficial. And then at the board meeting, the school board did approve the FY26 budget as proposed. But speaking of the board members under the leadership, our school district, our students are doing some great things. Last week at the board meeting, we did celebrate and recognize several students for their accomplishments. I like to highlight a few of them because I'm tickled to death about them. They've done some great things. First, I'd like to apologize because last month I did not mention this individual, and she deserves attaboy and a huge shout out, and this is Olivia Cook. Olivia Cook came in second place in a VSBA art competition out of 14 school divisions, and we are talking about a lot of school divisions. She came in second place with her artwork, and we are very proud of her in that adventure. Also, last week, we were able to recognize Curtis C.J. Kelly. Curtis, Northern Neck Technical Center, competed in the state tournament, and out of engineering and robotics, he came in second place in the state of Virginia. That is great stuff for Curtis and his team. Also, we have Marta Cole. Marta is also at Northern Neck Technical Center. She was first in the district and received second place in the state. She competed in culinary arts, specified in pastry. She's really great and wonderful. We're very proud of Marta. Now, a huge shout out to Evan Steffi. Evan was first place in the district, and then Evan went to state in carpentry and stole the gold. Evan became first place in the state. Now, we don't make a huge deal out of this, and I keep telling folks, it's just like our basketball team winning state championship. That is what Evan did. He is the best in carpentry in Skills USA in the entire state of Virginia. Congratulations. We are very proud of him. We did have several students that won second and third place at the Northern Neck Technical Center district competition, and we did celebrate and recognize them last week at a board meeting. Now, moving on to some projects around the campus that are happening and we are excited about. I'm glad to let everyone know that our transformer is up and operational. It has been fixed, a brand new transformer. So now Dominion Power has authority over it. They can come and repair it as they need, as they see fit, because previously it was under Colonial Beach Public Schools. For some reason, they wouldn't touch it. So when it blew up, we had to pay for everything from ground zero. So we are happy that it's up and running. Also, if you have not been to the school campus, I'm happy to tell you that our generator for the high school is in place. We're excited about that also. Now all is left is a few electrical connections and a required, required inspection, and then they will fire it up to make sure it does what it's supposed to do, and it does what we pay for it to do. So we are very excited about that. An update on the front entrance of the high school. We are in right now, at the time, we are trying to secure a GC for a CMAR, which is a construction management at risk for that project. We're about to put out another RFP tomorrow. We have a few that are interested. We're excited about that. And our plan is still to start demolition right after graduation. We may have to push it back to June, but we still try to keep the same timeline we had previously for that. And I think that is the last thing I was going to share with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Otto? No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, we have a dedication coming up for
Oh,
school
thank you
board
for-
office.
Oh, thank you so much. May 19th, we are scheduled 9:30. We plan to have the dedication for Charles M. Garland to dedicate the name of the school board to him. Right now, please, I'm soliciting information. We have some information on Mr. Garland. We would like some more information. The marquee, the board will be changed with his name on it, but we're also dedicating a wall that will be inside of the school board building to actually tell a little story about him. And hopefully we'll have some stories and some artifacts, some news articles, whatever else we can find. We'll have a plaque on the wall. It'll tell his story, his legacy, his contribution to Colonial Beach Public Schools. So if you have any laying around at the house, the office, whatever, please forward that to the school board office so we can use it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, one last sign up. Oh, Nigel. All right. Next up on the agenda is public comment. So before we start, I will go through the engagement of public comment. During all public comments or hearings, I ask that these guidelines be followed. You're going to stand at the podium, and for the record, we please ask that you state your name and address. If you'd like to be contacted, you can provide your contact information to the clerk on the form there, or give it to the clerk afterwards if you didn't add it already to the sign-up form. Make your comments to the council as a whole. Be brief, state your position, and provide facts. You may also provide written statements or supporting materials to the clerk for distribution to the council and town manager. Debate is prohibited, but we do follow up on comments and is provided by the town manager as well, so make sure you leave your contact information. Speak clearly. We'd like to hear what you have to say, and council will try to hear everyone who wishes to speak on a subject. The comments are limited to 5 minutes. Time cannot be transferred to another speaker. If you represent a group, you may want to identify other members of your group who are in attendance. And after public comment is closed, I encourage you to stay as council continues to engage and deliberate and dialogue on successive items after that. Thank you. With that, we'll open public comment. Welcome.
Thank you. Eric Nelson, 1321 Lossing Avenue. Madam Mayor, Council, Madam Town Manager, and public. I'm here to talk about downtown Colonial Beach. I just wanted to give you a brief update of where we are with things. As the town manager said earlier, we have hired, or they have hired, a new economic director, which is going to serve as the executive director of downtown Colonial Beach. And we are thrilled. I've had the opportunity to meet with her this afternoon, and with Kyle Meyer, who is our Virginia Main Street mentor. And he's had a lot of experience with her when she was the executive director of the Main Street in Orange. And he believes that she's going to be a wonderful addition to the town, and I believe that as well. She seems like she's going to be absolutely terrific for the town and for Main Street. And also just wanted to mention that I went to, once a year, the Main Street America has a conference, a national conference, and this conference took place last week in Philadelphia, and I went to that, and I can't tell you how jazzed up I am, all the wonderful ideas and how exciting it was. And one of our other board members went as well, and we are ready to rock this town and to make it the best possible town we can. So I just wanted to give you a bit of an update on downtown Colonial Beach and where we are, and tell you that we are ready to rock and roll.
Thank you.
Next up is Ms. Paige Williams.
Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Paige Williams, 1535 Irving Avenue. I didn't want to wait till the night before the budget was voted on, so I thought I'd get my comments out now. As budget season is upon us, I hope that all council members remember that the budget is council's budget, and to not raise taxes again and water fees again. Try to reduce spending and make budget cuts. My dad would always say there's Paige, there's wants, and there's needs. I thought that was good advice. I also have one more question for Parks and Rec. I know you can't answer back, but when India was the town manager and we did all that parks master plan and everything, she specifically, saw the importance of maintaining parks, not just building new parks, but maintaining, just like you need to maintain infrastructure. And she put in a line in the budget to replace the mulch in all the parks so it would never become an issue. I was just wondering if it was still a line item in the budget, and are you all going to still uphold what she put into place about replacing the mulch in all of the parks? Because I noticed there was mulch in the dog park, but not in the parks. That's it. Thank you, and have fun with that budget.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Town Council, my first comment is actually directed to perhaps to Chief Parsons. I was very concerned when I read the agenda and saw the public safety report and saw the spike in crime on Wednesday nights. We have previously been safe on a Wednesday because of when you hold the town council meetings, and then I realized that in the first quarter you had to cancel a couple of meetings, and that must explain that rise in crime on that night. And I would just encourage you to cancel as few meetings as possible to keep the town safe. More seriously, I was concerned of what I heard about the sewer and water receipts as you consider your budget. If they're only at 60-something% and we should have received 75% of the funds due, that either suggests that we have fewer households who are being billed, or something's going wrong in the collection of those fees. I didn't hear an explanation of what the problem is, but I just wanted to make sure, as you consider the various elements of your budget, that you make sure that that isn't repeated next year. We have enough problems in our water and sewer funds that not getting the revenue side of that right, which I must be naive, but seems to me like a fairly simple calculation. We could go around and count the number of houses. We should understand what's going on there, and I hope that you do as you do that calculation. Next subject is on my little pet peeve, which is the trash fund. And I have certainly heard that it will take us years to be able to actually account. I think 2 or 3 years was the time that I've heard mentioned, to actually account for that fund that we've been paying for a while now. I just wanted to make sure that in your institutional memory, town councillors, that you remember that there were ARPA funds used to buy the trash cans, and that money should be coming back out of that fund, should have, in my humble opinion, should have come back already into the ARPA fund to be available for you to spend on other projects as you see fit. So I hope you will do that, and I'll stop talking now so that you don't end up with a town council meeting that goes as long as the Board of Supervisors meeting did on Monday. As Ms. Tucker knows, we were there till 11:50 p.m. Discussing they were discussing all sorts of exciting things that could be happening at the drag racing strip, or perhaps more importantly, what they are seeing in Westmoreland County in PFAS increases in the water supply and so on. So I hope Mr. Trivett will be able to report on that with more expertise than I can, but there are a number of things, I think, in that meeting that have at least peripheral impact on the town. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Magner, 300 Lafayette Street. 4 months ago, we sat here and we listened to VDOT explain to everyone that if someone trips and falls over the manholes in the sidewalks that are above the sidewalk, y'all are liable. 4 months. 4. I spoke to the mayor personally, spoke to Mr. Williams personally. Public Works didn't even come and put out a cone or spray paint it orange. Caution tape it off, nothing. So let me get this right. When someone falls over it, they sue the town and y'all raise our taxes. We're just supposed to be happy. Okay, we're so glad we live in Colonial Beach. Also, you put mulch in the dog park before the kids. There's stickers coming. I don't know if y'all know, the town people are talking, there's stickers coming. My dog is better than your kid in Colonial Beach. Are y'all happy about that? You should not be. You should be very, very upset about it. Welcome to the circus, my friend. You're in for a wild ride. What is going on? Why is nothing being fixed? Y'all are spending money for sand on the beach and mulch for dog parks and not taking care of infrastructure and serious problems within the town. Now, I was decent. I gave town 4 months. Nothing was done. Y'all, people just blow people off. You don't know people, you don't know. Let me tell everyone, my dad had one of the most successful horse and carriage companies in the whole eastern seaboard. Doing so, every year he did the congressional ride and drive for all the state senators, congressmen, legislative, everything. 4 years in a row, my parents were invited to the White House for Christmas dinner, okay? I know how to get points across. When I leave tonight, I'm calling the news, I'm calling Rob Whitman, and I'm calling anyone else I need to call. What y'all are doing is crazy. It's going to stop. We've had enough. Thank y'all.
Welcome.
Hi, excuse me. Terry Miller, 121 Irving Avenue. Apologies to the gentleman that just came. I actually have some good things to say about the sand. I have been totally impressed with the work that Public Works, 121 Irving, so I'm watching it from my porch. I get up early. Totally impressed with the precision of the work that has been done. They are there just before sunrise, all sets of parties. And I was counting the number of trucks of sand, and I just stopped counting after a while because it was just so impressive. And the riprap that's now going, the additional riprap that is now going in, the speed at which they have completed this work in 3 days, I don't know if it's still going on. I think the beach is closed for 2 weeks, has just been very impressive. And I just wanted to commend the stakeholders that have been pulling this work off because they have really done a bang-up job. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else? All right, we'll keep moving forward. Next up is a resolution for the capital improvement plan fund allocation policy. Ms. Tucker, we discussed this at the work session, and now we're at the regular council meeting.
So you all have in your packets a copy of the draft policy again. I've included a resolution for your discussion and vote. The resolution does have language indicating that the town's reserve funds will not fall below 30% before funds are moved to fund the CIP project. And there is also a provision in the resolution to tie future, as the draft policy in your packets. We have, well, not discussed, but there was an indication of a need for such a policy back in January. So discussion was had at the work session, and you all are free to ask questions or have discussions amongst yourselves before a vote.
All right, we want to pick up a motion in a second before I open discussion.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay. All right, is there any further discussion? As far as I know, the only change, Ms. Tucker, is the alignment with the CPI, and that was the Davenport recommendation in here?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I know it was brought up casually at the work, or the strategic planning meeting, and then we got a first look at it at our last meeting. I feel like this probably needs a little bit more work before we jump into it. As a citizen recently mentioned, we still don't have a trash fund after 3 years of promising the citizens we're going to start collecting $30 a month for trash. And so now we're introducing yet another fund
This
that
is
we
not a
don't,
new fund.
that we don't really have a plan for. I'm not sure what you mean, Ms. Mayor, when you say this is not a fund. It says surplus funds in support of ongoing capital improvement. So we're going to put this money into a fund, are we not? It says,
Mr. Williams, we have a capital improvement fund, and it is funded in coalition with the capital improvement plan, which was voted on by the Planning Commission and also by Town Council at multiple public hearings annually. And this is a policy that continues to invest in our infrastructure and capital needs by taking surplus funds over the reserve amount necessary as advised by our financial advisor to continue to replenish funds that will help address capital needs and infrastructure. And it was discussed at the retreat in that same manner, and it is the same policy in front of us now.
okay, so I misspoke. It's not a fund, it's a mechanism to fund an existing fund.
Correct.
Which the only way it'll get funded is if we have extra taxpayer dollars collected every year to put into the fund. So we're funding something with either a very unreliable source, which is extra money, since we're picking at the budget, trying to find $700,000 to fill all the gaps as it is right now. I just don't understand how we're going to expect, without more details and a more detailed plan put in front of us, like how much money are we going to collect in addition to what we collect. And if we expect to collect a certain amount, we need to tell the public that it's probably going to raise their taxes. Or if we don't expect to take any more on, then we're trying to fill budget gaps, but yet we're saying that we're going to use the extra money in our taxes to fund the CIP. So I just feel like it's a pretty unreliable source of funding. And unless we're going to have additional policies in place that actually make it work, at this point, I don't feel like it's ready for prime time, basically, is my 2 cents.
Mr. Wood?
Of funding. It is a savings fund for when there are additional funds. So you've conflated a number of different things and been very oblique, giving people the wrong idea of what this is. This is not some sort of way to grab people's tax money and squirrel it away for other purposes. This is a way to have a policy which you had actually said was a good idea last time around, to have a policy by which we can make plans to come up with additional projects as they go. So, which is it, Mr. Williams?
Like I stated earlier, Mr. Wood, it's not about a sound financial policy. It's about a funding mechanism. So at this point, there is no funding mechanism for the policy. We're hoping that we collect extra money and we can stick a little bit away. maybe each year, but that's pretty unreliable, and that's.
It's not meant to be a funding policy or a funding source. It is simply a way to be responsible with additional funds. And forgive me, but a couple of things that you stated there are simply completely off what this is for. And it's not being fair to the folks who are listening in, and it's creating confusion, and it's simply not fair. Now, we discussed all of this at the last meeting, okay? Our financial advisors have told us that this is a good way to go. So frankly, I'm a little confused as to your confusion now when this was discussed so completely the last time around.
I beg to differ. We've barely discussed this. The mayor brought it up casually in a strategic planning meeting. It was her idea, and then we got a draft of it a few minutes before our last meeting. So very little discussion was had. So, we can agree to disagree on this, Mr. Wood, but
I
respectfully
appreciate
disagree.
the debate on different opinions up here, but I just want to make a couple points of clarification. It has been advised to the town to have multiple policies related to funding capital improvements over many years. This is the first time that a new funding policy is up for adoption to capital improvements since the resolution to put property sales into capital improvements. It does not preclude the fact that additional policies for ongoing efforts should not be entertained, considered, researched, and further investigated. This is just one piece of the financial puzzle. The fact is that we have surplus funds over our needs and from excess revenue from the past. We need an avenue to access those funds in order to make infrastructure improvements from items that have been neglected. This is not new money. This is not a new tax. There are new taxes, and our annual budget is not in any way funding it right now, which is, I think, Mr. Williams' point, and I'm not saying that there shouldn't be an annual funding mechanism. But we set up a very similar policy and procedure for the school system about 5 years ago, and it has worked out very well for the school. It's a big reason why the school has been able to maintain their facility to have air conditioners that work, which were gone out. They have upgraded the fields and the facilities there, and they're now doing the front entrance as part of security concerns and update to the building. That is because as funds come in, sometimes, especially as you receive grants, you are able to get reimbursed for things, and in the end, when you do your final audit, you may have not anticipated a surplus fund, and you cannot count on a surplus fund the following year, but yet that money has now made a surplus for you this year. And so we are setting that aside, a percentage of that aside, enough to keep us stable and safe, but above that amount as a policy to set it specifically to infrastructure and capital needs identified in the CIP. So this is what's brought up at the strategic action meeting in more detail, but it is not necessarily a new concept. And I will say Davenport has been somewhat preaching to the town council over several years to put something into place of this nature. So I just give a little bit of history in that. Yes, Mr. Larson.
As I read it, it's also true that when the town manager makes a recommendation to do the transfer above the 30%, it's still a council vote at that point.
Correct.
Right? So we would have oversight of the actual transfer if there's surplus above the 30% threshold. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's accurate.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
If I recall correctly, Davenport did recommend this, but they also said if you don't have any kind of funding for it, it's not going to really do you any good. So they actually need to be probably a way to fund it, like tax increases. So it wasn't just, okay, let's hope that you get a little bit of extra money in there. They actually said you're going to need funding. Otherwise, it's basically useless.
They
I
did
think-
not say useless or no good.
Yeah, I think the conversation was that they recommended that we had a different resolution or a pathway to fund the CIP because we have so many items that are on the CIP that aren't funded because we were only utilizing the sale of property. We don't have much property to sell as of today, right? So this is just another avenue in order to basically put those funds away so we have funds for the CIP itself.
I think it's true, though, that if there isn't a surplus, you're right, there won't be any funds transferred. I think that's kind of in what we have in front of us, right? So
See-
it's being opportunistic that we're allowed to transfer surplus funds over the 30% threshold if they're available. If they're not available, to your point, we won't have that opportunity.
Okay, and that was my clarity I was looking for, because in section 2, it states, for the purposes of this policy, surplus funds to unallocated general fund balances. Now, if, or we can't balance anything, then there's nothing to put in to this fund. But in the event that there is something, there will be clear guidelines in excess of this 30% that oversight, and where we, depending on how much we're putting in there, can make sure that we aren't cutting off something that needs to be done, where it's like infrastructure or anything else that needs to be done. We aren't just taking money and dumping it in there. We will use the funds for what they're supposed to, and everything else will go over, correct?
Correct.
And it will come back to us to have oversight when that is going over, to make sure that nothing that should have been used will be misappropriated, take that word back, will be put over there when it should be used elsewhere on needs, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to state that what you have mentioned, Councilwoman Lisa, is indicated in section 4 of the draft policy, allocation and approval process.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that was stated clearly, and everybody was on the same page and can hear, because we know people want to be aware that what we're saying and what is going to happen is actually going to happen, because then we see what can happen if we're not clear about how we're allocating or using funds. So that was what I wanted to try to do. Thank you.
Okay, is
Shall
there
we get to-
any further? I'll make sure sometimes this side puts their hand up more, so if I don't look to the left as much, just let me know, okay? All right, with that, we will call for a vote then. I'll start, Lisa, on your side. Ms. Grandstaff?
At this time, I'm going to vote nay for right now until I get some more comfort level with it and what we're going to do.
Do we need further discussion?
Because, how did we, under section 5, where it says a minimum reserve 30%, how did we, refresh my memory, how did we come at that
Sure.
number?
So Davenport presented that in the work session meeting with the big binder folder. They have towns, and
Okay.
because we have a school system, the normal threshold is 15%, but they wanted us to double it. So we will be holding a reserve of 30% because of the additional school. Normally, towns are at 15, so we're sort of buffered above and beyond what the normal threshold is.
So we're currently above 30%. I think it was 52% or something-ish.
It's in the binder.
So we're, the reason why they went with above the 30, so that the difference between the 30 and whatever that number is would move into the capital improvement plan now, is my understanding, to get us to the 30. Is that right, Lisa?
Oh, it's, he's looking at you.
Yeah.
She's trying to find the exact number.
Right.
Okay.
While she's looking, we're not voting.
Understand that, I'm
Okay.
just, I'm just
But
trying to
I
help.
Thank you for the
I'm trying to
clarity.
help.
Yes, he's
The
understanding.
understanding
Yeah.
part
Okay.
of, we are above the 30, right? So that's one part of it. So we're doing okay for that piece. But again, if we don't transfer any funds to the CIP, we'll never fund any CIP projects. So this is just a mechanism to help do that. You know, the sidewalks, the other infrastructure items that we got to do. The reason why we can't fund those is because we don't have these type of mechanisms to fund the CIP.
Okay, so basically we are voting on the policy.
Correct.
To
Just
put
the
that in
policy.
place for
Can
the
I,
president.
since we've opened the conversation back up? can-
Yes, Mr. Williams.
Well, I mean, that's good news if we're 20% over. So the proposal for the water sewer increases tonight and the 2% lodging tax, I guess those problems going to be solved because we're over 20-some% over what we should be
Separate
collecting?
fundings. Those are separate fundings. Water and sewer is a separate funding than what we're talking about here.
No, I know that, but I also said the 2% lodging tax. We're getting ready to have a proposal tonight for that.
Okay, so we've been over this before, but it's good to reiterate. The annual budget is annual revenues and annual expenditures. It has to be balanced by state law. Things that are capital improvements or capital funds, like what this policy is addressing, are not in the annual budget, and those monies cannot be used to balance your annual budget. And so if you're using your reserve funds to balance your annual budget, that kind of financial policy is what puts towns in debt and at risk. Those are the kinds of towns that get put on a watch list at the state level and become audit failures. So we have sort of, and I think this often gets conflated, and I get it. It can be confusing because we're spending money and people think, well, that's my tax money. Well, it is sometimes. Sometimes it's grant money, sometimes it's match money, sometimes it's state money. But an annual budget is annual reoccurring expenses funded by annual reoccurring revenues. And then a capital fund is set aside. That's your savings account. That's your, it's not a part of the annual process. So you can, and I've seen towns, I've seen them balance their current year budget with a reserve transfer. That is not a position that you financially want your town to be in, because what happens the following year when you have not met your expenditures with your actual revenues is that gap exponentially grows. And now, not only just like in the sewer fund where we should be taking it piece by piece at $5, instead of $15, right? And where these small increments will help cover that so that you don't create that gap. Instead, you have now created a gap that is so sizable that you are going to send people into shock when you have to make that up. And so that can be done. It is certainly not the advice of our financial advisors. And it's not something that, honestly, I would vote for. I don't think that is a sound financial policy, and I want this town to be successful and here for decades and decades to come. And I also want us to handle our infrastructure needs, which are plenty, and as you get to the CIP program in the back, are massive. Each step is sometimes a small step, and maybe it doesn't solve the whole problem. But this is just one step into having a more positive policy. We do have reserve money, which cannot, by sound financial policy, cannot be used to balance the budget, but should be used for one-time expenditures that improve the quality of life, the safety of our residents, and the durability of our infrastructure. And that's what the capital improvement fund is all about.
Would you like to know what the balance was, where we're at the end of fiscal '24? It was 42.5%. That was what our reserves are at. This policy is saying anything above 30% at the end of the year, you guys would take it and allocate it to a CIP fund to be used for further infrastructure and capital projects.
Okay, is there more questions? I want to make sure there is enough discussion on that, because to your point, if you don't feel comfortable with the above and beyond with the policy, then I want to make sure all questions, come up, and there's, fruitful debate about it, and, it is not it's kind of a simple policy, to be honest with you. Anything over the 30% threshold of your savings account gets set aside to infrastructure needs that are all then prioritized based on those public processes. But it is a really important policy, even if it's not the most,
Madam Mayor, can I state it in an easier way for them to understand? Okay, so right now, at the end of fiscal '24, our fund balance was at 42.5. Our financial policy says we need to keep 15% in reserves. So that money is unassigned at this time. Had we had this policy in place last year, we could have took what was over 30, which is 12.5%, and moved that into the CIP fund, which is assigning it to a purpose to cover the capital project needs and infrastructure needs that we have.
And to follow on that, using it to balance the current year budget is a bad fiscal, is what our advisors have told us, and you clearly firmly believe, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, just to clarify, I wasn't necessarily suggesting that. I was trying to make the point that if we're 20% over, or whatever percent we are over, that means we're over collecting from the taxpayers.
that's not necessarily how we got to this point.
See, Madam Mayor, this is one of the things that I wanted to avoid, so that we are throwing a bunch of different things in one bucket and making it more confusing, okay? We can have that discussion where if we have reserves and we have over, that we've over-collected from the taxpayer, that's not necessarily true. We get money from multiple sources, but we can have that conversation. But that conversation is not what this is about. This is about creating a policy so that we stay on sound financial footing. And I think you'll take a look at the presentation that Davenport gave us and see financially, this town, as far as being able to take advantage of good rates on loans, is well-run financially. So I just want to make sure that what we're discussing is what we're discussing, and we stay on the fact that this is a policy and not a bunch of other things as far as the budget goes, because the budget is something completely different.
Well, for me, thank you, Lisa, because I was looking for the clarity, because you and I have had discussions. Thank you, Kenny. And Natasha, based on items 4, 3, and 6, where it does state that we can come back and address and reflect any changes, I'm in favor to go forward with the policy. I just need that clarity, and I thank all of you who provided that.
Is there any other questions at this time, or clarifications that need to be made? Okay, all right, Lisa, can I still start with you on this side then? Okay. You got to say it into the mic, though.
You can start on the other side with Mr.
Oh,
Wood.
you want me to start on Mr. Wood's side?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Nay.
Oh, now it's to you, Lisa. That came quick.
Aye.
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 All right, and I vote aye. All right, next up is our public hearing, the moment you've all been waiting for in the audience, because it's on the BZA, which is our lively Board of Zoning Appeals. Ms. Darla, would you like to read us in?
Yes, ma'am.
We have discussed this at a work session prior, and this is now the public hearing for the changes to the ordinance.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor, members of council. You have a public hearing this evening on zoning text amendment ZTA 25-01. This is an amendment to Article 17 of the zoning ordinance. This article deals with the Board of Zoning Appeals, variances, and provisions for appeal. Myself and the town attorney have evaluated the zoning ordinance regulations in the article and have prepared some minor revisions to the article for you and for your consideration this evening. The purpose of these amendments are for ease of understanding the regulations and also using them because we've made the language clearer. And also, the amendments are provided to reflect guidance in the Code of Virginia. If you look at the ordinance sample that you have here this evening, you have a clean version that I've provided for you, and you also have a marked up version that shows all of the changes. And the last version, or when this was last amended in your zoning ordinance, was in 2006. So yes, it is time for some language cleanup and some clarity just for that purpose. The town council has provided for staff to update the zoning ordinance, and we have been doing so with various chapters of the ordinance where, the modifications aid in clarity of the regulations. And so that's what you have before you this evening. There was an email that I got about 10 minutes prior to the meeting this evening. I think it was received by you all at like 5:35. And the email presented with suppositions that the amendment is related somehow to Board of Zoning Appeals actions. It is absolutely not. That information is not correct. So I wanted to clear that up in case any of you had had a chance to read the email. And just wanted for you to have that direction. At their meeting on December the 12th, following a public hearing, the Planning Commission voted to unanimously recommend approval of this amendment to Town Council, and staff also recommends that you approve the amendments as they have been presented to you. I believe the town attorney noticed in your town council ordinance for adoption, if you choose to do so, there was a language change that was needed. I'll let Mr. Powell advise you of that, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have regarding these changes.
Thank you, Darla. Under the ordinance number 765, under little letter B, you'll notice that sentence sort of hangs. It says, upon consideration of the foregoing and having found that the amendments to the zoning ordinance, Article 7 and so forth, as proposed and attached. It doesn't say more. It doesn't. So I'm suggesting that you add our ordinance is so amended. Just so you actually take action, and I'll give the resolution to Heather.
Heather, you got that? Tracking? Okay. All right, at this time, I'm going to open the public comment up. The public hearing is 7:52, 7:47, 7:52, somewhere in between that. I got a couple clocks. Is there anyone signed up for?
We have Sandy Rodeheaver, and then an email comment from Will Knuckles was submitted, so that'll be available in the minutes or by request, and it was with all of you guys.
I read it. Okay. Welcome, Sandy.
I don't really have anything to say. Sorry. Thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, we will close the public hearing at 7:53. I don't know, I'm going with the clock that's up front. All right. Do we want to make a motion on this? Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? All right, discussion on the changes, the amendments to Article 17 relative to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Were there any questions? Yes, Mr. Williams?
I do have a question. Actually, it relates to the public comment portion of the public hearings. We discussed and had a vote recently to remove public comment from readings from our regular agenda items, but I'm not sure if we got any clarification on public comment when it comes to, written public comment when it comes to public hearings. Well, for one thing, so they're not going to be read, is that correct? For public hearing purposes?
I think they're all going to be submitted into with the meeting minutes. Mhm.
So we just need to get clarification in writing or something on that, because there's really nothing in public. I was asked today, and I said, well, I don't really know. We don't have anything in writing.
Oh, I thought you were referring to within the BZA text here, but you're talking about a meeting right now.
Yeah, just we have a public comment, it's written in. We decided recently not to read public comments for regular
Right.
public comment, but it wasn't clarified if that also included public hearings.
Okay, I thought you were talking about when the BZA has a hearing, but you're
No.
not talking about a BZA hearing.
No.
Okay,
For
got it.
our meeting purposes
Mhm.
tonight. So I wanted to ask that, and also, I was asked for clarification, public comments be added to minutes? Because I know sometimes we state that they're going to be in,
Here, so when you guys get the minutes, there's the attachments on the back, and if you look at the attachments, and in the body of the minutes, it says, see attached, somebody emailed a comment, see attached, so it's in the minutes, like the package.
okay, so those,
Before the minutes, they can just, request. Okay, I want to make sure we stay on track. We are discussing right now the adoption of Article 17 to the zoning ordinance, the Board of Zoning Appeals.
okay. And then, so, a couple of questions for Darla. First off, I'd like to know what you, in your opinion, are the major changes in here, because I see a lot of red, a lot of things crossed out, which makes me a little bit nervous, not saying anything nefarious, it's a lot of information I'm voting on tonight, and I'm definitely not an expert in any of this, so could you give us a brief overview of some of the major changes, if it's like something minor like chair or chairman, board, capitalized, those things I don't care about, but say, for example, in staggered terms, I get that, section B, 7.1. But I see, like, for example, 7-5, significant change there. Could you tell us what that change entails?
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams. This section, as I stated to you earlier, the last revision to this ordinance section for the town was in 2006. Since that time, there have been changes to state code relative to findings and that the Board of Zoning Appeals should look to and should find when they're considering variances. And so the revisions in this section are provided to align with the language changes in state code.
Okay, so all these pretty much line up with the state code now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there anything outside of that in section 7.7-5?
No, sir.
Okay. And also 7-6,
You're meaning 17-5, right?
Yes.
17-5,
Okay.
yes. 17 decisions.
Yes, this has to do with process mostly. If you look at the timing for the writ as provided for the 21 days, it's just to clarify some of the processes that weren't in the ordinance amendment, and those were suggested by the town attorney for clarification, that we had those in there. And then on the following page, there was some language in here that was removed relative to section 17.8 that dealt with notice of public hearings. And rather than have some language in our ordinance, we need to comply with state code, which over the last couple of years has changed back and forth a little bit about when public notices are required to be posted in the paper. So rather than coming back for ordinance amendments, we're referencing the state code in that situation. And I'll ask Mr. Duggan if he has anything he'd like to add.
No, that's it. I mean, the main purpose behind this was our language did not match the state code. And so we had to sort of, when there were hearings, we had to make it so we followed both. And so it's just easier to have all the language follow the state code.
Allocation.
Any other questions? All right, I'm gonna call for the vote. I'll start with you again, Mr. Wood.
Aye.
Mr. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Grandstaff?
Aye.
Ms. Sanford? Aye. Mr. Allison?
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, the next two steps are to, we're starting first with the capital improvement plan. Tonight is not the adoption of any of these items, it is just the setting a date for the public hearing on these. Presumably, I believe the next work session, I think is what's being suggested. But I know the capital improvement plan has had a lot of changes, so would you, I guess, I'm going to ask council, what would you all prefer on this? Darla can go over the changes right now with us, or we could do that ahead of the public comment. Sometimes I find that when we do the presentation now, and then public comes, they don't get to hear the presentation. And so sometimes I found it, I don't know, it's just an idea. Do you want to do it both times? Do you want to do it now and next week?
I think it's helpful sometimes when it's fresher in your mind, and certainly we do want the public to be able to hear it.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't mind hearing an overview tonight.
There for the full presentation. Does that sound okay?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. So the capital improvement plan that you have in your packets tonight or this evening is the full plan. It does include the revisions to the plan that we spoke about when you last discussed it. I believe it was in February, may have been your work session in March, but we have made the changes that you requested. What changes you will see is you still have sort of the introduction that explains what the plan's for, what its purpose. That was recommended to you by the Planning Commission. As far as the items that are included now is, if you look at the plan itself, what we did was we numbered all the items, so as you're discussing them, it's easier to discuss, and you can say, look at item 6 relative to sidewalk repairs. And so you'll see throughout the report, item 6 is sidewalk repairs. And then in the back of behind the plan, part of the plan, is the individual sheets that you had requested from the department heads on each of the identified needs. These are also numbered to reflect the items in the capital improvement plan, so you'll be able to find 6 and find the sidewalk repairs. Speaking of the sidewalk repairs, if you look on page 4, the sidewalk repairs are included here. They weren't included originally because we had not included the items that were mandated improvements that had to be made, but you all asked for us to include them, so they have been included, the sidewalks as well as the repairs necessary to the wastewater treatment plant, the wastewater pump station, and relative to the I&I consent order. And so they are calculated in your totals here. We also included the list of completed projects. Those had been omitted from the previous version that you had. They are now here. They're on page 8. And then we were provided a series of sheets, breakdown. This is in the appendix. And these sheets break down the expected revenues across all of the 5 fiscal years, as well as the total, and still include the description and the items identified by number. So you'll be able to reference those. And then I think finally was something that council felt was important, and that was an individual sheet for each of the items that tells you which department, what the name of the project is, what the project number is, what fund it's coming from, like the general fund or water fund, and then also includes a description of the project as well as a justification provided by the department heads. And then each of these also provide the funding, anticipated funding year on each of the. Really, I'm highlighting for you what the changes are since your last version of this. And also, just to let you know that we did include the mandated items that we had not before. Otherwise, the plan is the same as you had first received from the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission held their public hearing in January of this year. They recommended approval of this to you with the appendix. So the new part that the Planning Commission did not have, even though they did have a work session, with the department heads, they didn't have the individual write-ups that you have. But the rest of the plan is the same, and I'll be glad to answer any specific questions if you have them.
This is a lot more information, Darla. I really appreciate it. I think you've responded to a lot of our comments, so that's just what I have to say about it.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank the department heads for their work, too, on getting some of the justification and that information together as well. Quickly.
I'll just echo that same comment, right? It was something that I felt was important to add the extra detail, and it's going to be very helpful in making decisions on individual projects when we get there.
Yes, sir.
Just a couple quick questions. Still got some reviewing to do, so I'm just preliminary in preparation for our public hearing. One of the questions I have is, like, for example, I see a significant amount for beach riprap. Is it spelled out somewhere like a yearly amount? It just says 750,000.
Yes, yes, sir.
It's
If you
3/4 of a
refer
million.
to the appendix, which is behind, the appendix begins basically on page 9, but since they were different size pages so you could read it, I wasn't able to number that. But in the appendix, the beach wrap and nourishment is broken out, and it is projected to be $150,000 a year for the 5-year period, which is $750,000. I think it's being highlighted up here. Thank you, Heather. And then also, that discussion, that item on here is item 5.
Okay, yeah, that definitely helps as we're looking through this.
Yes, sir.
And just one more question. In the past, we've been told that the CIP was pretty much a wish list. And so, but this year, I think I learned a little different. My experience was a little bit, when we were doing the beach renourishment and riprap, they said, you all approved that in the CIP, so you already pretty much approved it as a project. So I just want to know, as we're going through this, and are we to look at this as a wish list, or are we to look at this as if we approve something on here that we're given our stamp that this is something we support?
You are approving the plan as it's provided to you or with what. So this does identify a list of projects, as you'll see. You know, all of the funding is not identified for where that funding is going to come. Document, but it is a plan that, you know, council is required, actually, by state code to adopt a document that helps you prepare for your capital improvement needs, and in agreeing upon being on here as priorities for the next 5 years. That doesn't mean that, that won't change. This list is not exactly as the list that you had last year. Some items were completed and are off the list. So I think it's, yes, so to answer your question, is it a wish list or is it a must-do list? I think the answer is yes, both. I think that's the answer to you, because some items on here, there is not a funding source. There's some items on here that we all know that are mandated requirements. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Sometimes I think the idea of a plan and mechanisms that go to pay for them get conflated. This is just the plan, and because I agree, I don't think, like, if it's on the plan, the reality is then steps have to be taken to transfer funds, to allocate them, and then spend them. And that process is separate from the plan. And so we would still have to do fund allocation and transfers separately from the plan.
Yes, we would first have to have the funding in order to go forward with the plan. I mean, right now, we know our CIP doesn't have any money left. We've spent it all. And it's one of the reasons we adopted funds back into that. So until we identify the funds, none of these projects will get done. It's a plan, things that we want to do, that
Well, I
we
think-
need to find funding sources for.
To Mr. Williams' point, because he's asked this a couple times, and I have to say, I kind of echo as, I'll take one that's maybe simpler. I'll pick on the chief. His cars, right? So when we adopt the plan, there is not an automated thing that says there is now $131,000 from CIP that can be spent plan. Because still, in order to spend the money to buy the cars, we would have to adopt funding from the CIP. Am I getting that right? I just want to make sure that's.
Correct.
So can I ask the question
Yeah.
a different way? Right, so let's say that based on the resolution we passed tonight, and we do the transfer, and there is a balance now in the CIP fund, does council still have some oversight on the spending from that balance for specific projects, or is it sort of authorized because it's funded in the plan, in the CIP fund now?
The policy that you just adopted, before we even make a transfer into the CIP, it has to come forward to council. And it has to be, I believe it says it needs to be
That's not what I'm
assigned to a
asking,
specific project.
I understand that, and I think that's appropriate. That's not what I'm asking. So
In
let's
the
say
past-
we go through that process, and we do approve a transfer CIP fund, and the money now sits there. Do expenditures from that fund have any council oversight at that point, or is the planning commission now authorized to sort of?
Past CIP funds had identified that the source was CIP or funding from the town that we already had in the CIP. This is a little bit different this year. We have no money in the CIP fund to fund. So everything now, going forward, will have to come to council to identify a funding source and then get approval to move forward on the project.
And further, to not only identify a source, but to identify the item onto which to spend the money, correct?
Right. Like I said, if we have a surplus at the end of fiscal '25 that goes above that 30%, we're going to put that through, but we're going to go to you first and say, we have this surplus. According to our policy, we want to put it into the CIP, and at that point, we're going to.
Sorry, all right, all in favor of the motion to?
Aye.
Okay. A public hearing for the proposed budget presentation. I think that has just recently been sent to us. Is that correct? All right, so you want to, again, we will do a presentation. an overview right now, but the reality is all we're doing tonight is setting the public hearing, and I think it is, again, important that the people that come to the public hearing get all the information available, so.
And we've been seeing this as it's been going along, so I'm not sure that we need a presentation tonight.
It's not, some of the presentation it's for helping everyone understand it, I think. Us too, though, but yep.
Ability of the town, our community needs, and the alignment with our municipal strategic objectives. This alignment, the sustainability of our local government budgets. Our school funding with the required local match, consistent upward trajectory. This trend underscores the growing financial complexity educational resource allocation. The required local match to Colonial Beach schools increased by $181,000 for fiscal '26. The town is required to address its sidewalks due to noncompliance with the Americans for Disabilities Act. The town is obligated to fulfill the requirements of the consent order issued by the Department of Environmental Quality related to our wastewater treatment plant. Town's council's reluctance to raise any taxes persists even as this fiscal gap between revenue and expenditures widens. And then we go on to the general fund summary. The next slide shows our tax rates. Our current tax rates for fiscal '25 here for real estate, personal property, and meals in any of our real estate or personal property or meals tax. The only change that we are asking is a 2% change in lodging and cottage. Significant budget balancing actions that we took. We deferred funding for the following positions. A part-time customer service clerk, this has been deferred for the second year. A part-time police officer position. Our full-time Parks and Rec maintenance crew, that has been deferred now for a second year. And a full-time planner in the community and development department. We declined the proposal to add a crossing guard to the police department. We reduced our full-time grant writer position to a part-time. The funding was deferred totally last year. We have provided no cost of living increase. The revenue we get from 2.48%. Our real estate tax assessment did increase by 2.5%. We had no increase in our real estate tax rate. The personal property tax assessment decreased by 4%, including delinquent personal, we're including delinquent personal property tax collections as part of the taxing authority consulting services that we have been using for our real estate collections. Again, we have no increase to our personal property tax. Again, we have no increase to our personal property tax. We are asking for a 2% increase in this budget. The monies are spent. You can see the biggest part of our spending goes to Colonial Beach Public Schools, 30%. Our next biggest for the police department. Public Works, sorry. And the next is our police department. You can see the rest of them are very small. And the school takes up 30% of our budget. That leaves us with 70% to spend on all the other departments. Our expenditure budget highlights. No cost of living for our town staff. The school staff is receiving 4.5%. The '26 proposed budget is only 5.7% higher than our fiscal. We have added no new staff positions. Our funding, we deferred for our health care premiums increased by 3.8%. There was a 5.78 increase in the school required local match. The budget does performance evaluation and hiring onboard software package. This was originally asked for back in fiscal '23. Now we'll move on to the water fund. Our expenses have continued to outpace our revenue. The charges for services have not been adjusted proportionally to the growth in our expenditures. And here are our water service annually. It's $384 for your water. We are proposing an 8% increase to balance our budget, which will bring your annual water portion of your utility bill to $414.72. If you break that down monthly, the cost of the increase is only $2.56 a month. And here's our revenue sources. So most of our revenue, 85%, comes from the service fees we charge for your water. We do bring in some money, 11.32% for new water connections, reconnection fees if your water is shut off due to non-payment is 1.67%. The plan review, inspection, and availability fees that we implemented, will be going on 2 years now, only bring in 1.73% of that income or revenue. Most everything is spent on operating costs of our water department. And then we have about 30% of our revenues are spent toward paying down our debt service. And moving on to the sewer fund. Issues impacting our sewer fund. Again, revenues have not kept pace with our rising expenses. Our charges for services have not been adjusted proportionally to the growth in our expenditures. The town is obligated to fulfill the requirements of the consent order issued by the Department of Environmental Quality related to our wastewater treatment plant. An estimated $33.6 million in upgrade is required for the wastewater treatment plant. Sewer service charges. Currently, you're paying $934 a year for your sewer service. And we're proposing an 8% increase, which would take your annual cost to $1,008.72. Breaking that down, the cost of the increase per month is $6.23. Our revenue sources, again, our biggest source of revenue, almost 74%, comes from those service fees for your sewer service. One-time use revenues, this is something that we use to balance the budget this year. We needed almost 16%. And that is, we're using part of our reserves to balance this budget. Fees that we get from Westmore bring in about 5.5%. New sewer connections about almost 5%. And again, the plan review, inspection, and availability fees, not even 1% of our revenue. Our expenditures. So our wastewater treatment plant is making up 67% of our expenditures. Our sewer crews and the sewer pipes that they repair, and our pump stations, about almost 25%. And then we have a 9% debt service payment that we make. Oh, tonight, our budget next steps. Tonight, staff is requesting that town council set a public hearings for May 7th for the transient tax amending Chapter 20, Article 3, the water and sewer fees and service charges amending Chapter 21, Article 6, adoption and appropriation of the fiscal 26 budget and the adoption and appropriation of the fiscal year 26 budget for the school board. And then schedule action to adopt and appropriate, I'm sorry, that should have said fiscal 20 request on May 21st. Anybody have any questions?
Okay. It's always sobering, yet we still hear it again and again. Thank you, Lisa. All right, so like we said, the action item tonight is to set the public hearings, and the reason why they need those, because there are advertising requirements that have, so we don't have to make a decision on how that plays out, but we do have to place dates for the hearings so that they can be advertised and processed properly by state code. I know that this has come up before, and this isn't our first time discussing in talking about the proposed, can you go to the last slide, Heather, of her presentation? I want to make sure we stay on track with that. The proposal to us right now is a balanced budget with the 2 cents in change in the transient tax. The equivalent of that is 1 cent, and that's, one way or the other, but I think if we wanted to have, we could propose a public hearing for both of those options. You always want to set the public hearing at a worst-case scenario, and you can set the rate lower, but you cannot go higher than any of the public hearings. So oftentimes, we've set public hearings higher than anticipated, knowing that they can be readjusted down but can't go above it. So for anybody that do up here. Okay. So do we have a motion to set a public hearing and the adoption appropriation dates as recommended by staff, which is May 7th and May 21st? Let's start with that first.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second to that? Okay, all right. Is there discussion? We'll just start with that one piece right now. Is there discussion on those dates and setting the public hearings? Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we've got that done. All right, now the next step is a question of, would we like to entertain a motion to add a public hearing for an alternative to the transient tax, which would be 1 penny real estate?
Are you suggesting 2 hearings on the same, in the
It
same
would be the
meeting?
same, yes, they would be consecutive,
I see.
as a part of the process.
So basically, we'd just be reviewing 2 different funding options.
Correct.
Yeah.
It gives us the option to look at both. It also gives the opportunity for the public to weigh in on both.
I'll make that recommendation.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, again, this is to hold a public hearing in relation to, this is not to approve that, it's just to open it for public